We got to be skilled at tracking trends. We got to be watching what's going on out there in terms of consumer sentiment, in terms of the dynamic of the marketplace. And as we spot the trends, identify the trends, then we must become skilled at tracking the trends and then strategizing as a result of the trends so that we can capitalize on them rather than become victims of them. Great entrepreneurial thinkers are really good at trend tracking. They have an alertness factor about what's going on in their market and in the national market. And they keep a good handle on that. Let me tell you one of the trends that's going on that I had a lot of fun tracking. At U.S. Learning, we created a model called The Evolution of Selling. My co-author, Ken Blanchard, has a great line. He says the greatest salespeople today are the men and the women who lead with their ears. Write that one down, too. Lead with your ears. You see, years ago, the greatest salespeople were the people who stereotypically did all the talking. They said, boy, let me tell you about my company. Let me tell you about our service. Let me tell you about me. Let me tell you about our track record. Let me tell you, let me tell you, let me tell you. You see, the greatest sales professionals today, I am unswervingly convinced, are the men and the women who say, you know, I'm excited to tell you about some of the things we feel we can do for you, but before we get to there, I want to find out where you're coming from on some things. He said, okay, if I ask you some questions. They love it. It's needs analysis. It's trust building. You see, I am convinced that the very successful entrepreneurial thinkers in business today are becoming rapidly aware of the fact that trust and stress are inversely proportional in business relationships. You see, when we do a good job of building trust, trust goes up and stress comes down. Now, why is it that the product pitch and the hard sell really don't work anymore? It's because they are high-stress sales tactics which cause stress to go up and trust to come down. And that's not good. We got to be so good at dealing with people that we are sincerely doing a great job of building trust. And if we're doing that and doing that well, great things are going to happen. So let me show you, first of all, the undesirable model. And the undesirable model works something like this. Trust is low, stress is very high. Maybe there's some pressure in the means or method of our presentation. It's not working well. Stress goes up. Now, when trust is low and stress is high in a relationship, guess what happens? Our conversion rate becomes much shorter. Simultaneously, we realize that the sales cycle gets longer. The definition of the sales cycle is the length of time which transpires from the time you first talk to someone about a given service until you get an affirmative decision. Sales cycle is measured in time, as you know. The greatest salespeople on the planet, have you ever thought about it? The best salespeople are the men and the women who just seem to magically possess an inherent ability to compress more achievement and thus more income into a given measurable time frame. And people look at them and they say, that person is no smarter than me. That person is not working any more hours than me. What's going on? They're making 4 times more money than I am. And the answer is they are compressing more achievement into a given measurable time frame because of their uncanny, atypical skill of building trust and advancing relationships. They're keeping stress low and trust high. Now, sometimes it's challenging. How many of you ever have to deal with a weirdo? Okay? What's a weirdo? Somebody who's different from you, right? How many of you even happen to be sitting next to a weirdo this morning? Anyone at all? Okay. How many of you at this point are pretty sure you got a speaker on the stage who's a little bit weird today? I'm not going to deny that. You know, we've got a southern comedian from down outside of Memphis. His name is Brother Dave Gardner. Brother Dave had a great line. He thought he was being funny, but I thought this was deep psychology. He said, what we've got to remember is everybody's weird once you get to know them. And you know, that's pretty good stuff. Everybody's got their idiosyncrasies, but friends, if there's a communications gap to be closed, it's our job to close that gap, isn't it? Say yes. It's our job to close the gap. We close those gaps, great things happen. We got to perform some periodic customer service miracles. Best example of a customer service miracle I can think about, I had the opportunity to know an individual quite well by the name of Keith Bennett. Keith Bennett owned a parking and rental car facility near the Memphis International Airport, about 10 minutes from my office, and I parked with him for years. That's where I would park when I would travel on the airliner, and I pulled in there one day and got out of my car, got on their van, they loaded my bags, took me to the terminal. I was leaving on about a 10-day trip. 2 days later, my wife pulled in to park her car. She gets out of her car, gets on the van. They load her bags, take her to the terminal. She's going to meet me in Toronto for a long weekend, little holiday. What she didn't realize was when she got out of her car, she left her wallet on the right front seat. She had her purse, had her passport, but her wallet was on the right front seat. She didn't even miss it. She's happy camper going on a trip. Well, they're taking her to the terminal. The guy gets in her car to put it in the parking place, and he sees the wallet. The employee takes the wallet inside, gives it to the manager, Keith Bennett, who looks through the wallet, sees the name Hutson, and calls my office. Well, of course, I've already left town, so he talks to my assistant, Linda Hightower. He said, Linda, this is Keith Bennett calling. I manage the parking facility near the airport where the Hutsons park, and Miss Hutson just parked with us. We've already taken her to the terminal. She left her wallet in her car. I'd love to try to get it back to her. Do you have any idea what flight she's going out on? Linda said, Keith, I'm sorry, I don't book her flights. I book his, but I have no idea when she's leaving. He said, well, what travel agency do you use? She said, International Tours. He said, who do you deal with over there? She said, her name is Sarah. He said, do you know the phone number offhand? She said, sure, I call it all the time. It's 345-1860. He said, should I call her? He said, no, I've written it all down. I'll call her and I'll call you back. So he calls Sarah at the travel agency, gets her on the line. Says, Sarah, this is Keith Bennett calling. I manage the parking facility near the airport where the Hutsons park. Miss Hutson just parked with us. We've already taken her to the terminal. We realize she left her wallet in the car. I've got it right here. I'd love to try to get it back to her. Do you have any idea what flight she's going out on? Sarah said, sure. She just picked up her ticket 30 minutes ago. Bingo. Initiative pays off again. She said, hang on a second, let me punch it into the computer. And she punched it in momentarily. She says, here we go. It's Northwest Flight 268. Leaves at 12:32 p.m. It's a nonstop to Detroit with a connection to Toronto. Well, he's writing it down. He said, that's all I need for now. I'll call you back. With that, Keith Bennett hangs up the phone, jumps up from the desk, runs out into the parking lot, jumps in the first available automobile, speeds over to the terminal, parks upper level curbside. What's a little risk for a good customer, right? He jumps out. He's got his flashing lights going and locks the door, runs inside, checks that front door monitor, looking for Northwest 268. There it is, Northwest 268. Leaving at 12:32 p.m., nonstop to Detroit, on time out of gate B26. He looks at his watch and thinks, maybe I can make it. He takes off running. He gets through security and goes into a full sprint. This was before the security debacle we've got today, where you need 3 letters from kinfolks and a urine sample to get through security. You know? Anyway, he's all set now. He is through security and goes into a full sprint down that concourse. People are getting out of his way. They're looking at him like he's crazy. He is flying down through there. Runs all the way down to gate B26. Sells his way by the gate agent. Runs down the jetway to the door of the aircraft. Sells his way by the flight attendant. Right down the center aisle of that aircraft looking for my wife. He spots her over there and he runs over to her. Panting now from his sprint. He said, Miss Hutson, here's your wallet. Have a great trip. And he gave it to her, and he turned and he was out of there. Didn't even wait for a tip. Question. How long do you think I'm going to do business with Keith Bennett? One word answer starts with the letter F. We got over 1,000 people here today, but I bet we all know the answer. Let's say it aloud together now. Starts with the letter F. The word is forever. Forever. I don't even have the wife anymore, and I'm still parking with Keith Bennett. It took me a long time to be able to laugh about that line, I'll tell you. There are no unrealistic goals, only unrealistic time frames. What does that mean? I think that means we can achieve just about anything we truly want to achieve given a reasonable time frame. Now, you can't be ludicrous about it, but I like the thought line. It helps us look at what we can make happen. Helps us focus on the excitement of the future. Well, I got to tell you, when I heard him say that, I got excited. And I got to confess to you, I didn't even hear the next 7 or 8 minutes of his speech because my imagination was running rampant. He said, no unrealistic goals, only unrealistic time frames. I got to tell you, I started mentally picturing